Hello, world, and welcome to a plant-based production podcast with your host, Skylar Heyman. On this episode, Mike Ryan, proud owner of Samadhi Moss, joins the show to talk about the health benefits of sea moss. Enjoy and be a lifelong learner. All right, we have Mr. Mike Ryan on a plant-based production today, and we are excited to talk about the magic sea moss. Mike, thank you so much for joining the show and sharing your wisdom. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so Magic Mike, the Moss Man, is his new nickname. I met him at the Leucadia Farmers Market down the street in North County, San Diego. And Mike, you said you've been doing moss since November. What inspired you to get started in such a niche field such as creating moss for health?
Yeah, great question. So Samadhi Moss was born around October. The first farmers market was November 28th in Leucadia. So the business came into the public eye in November, late November. About a month or two before that, I was selling to friends, and I was just like getting the product out to whoever wanted it, you know. And the reason why sea moss is because, one, I've been taking it for a long time, and it has really helped with my gut, my skin, my energy levels, just feeling resilient, you know, just getting through those hard days, just getting that extra life force energy, you know, to really push me past, any moments of stress or fatigue. And so I was making sea moss for my smoothies, and about a year ago, I had created a smoothie line called Samadhi Smoothies, and same logo. Instead of the word moss, it was smoothies. A lot of people don't know this, but this business was originally a medicinal smoothie line business, and I created it here in North County, and I had a few customers I would deliver it to every day, and it was a good idea at first, and it was the smoothies were pretty awesome. Like, I made with like my own homemade Sicilian almond milk and just all these amazing organic herbs, and I would make my own sea moss for it, and I would just make like the bomb ass smoothies, man. And it just wasn't feasible in the long run. Just like the cost, the labor, everything. I took a step back and I was like, man, I don't know, this isn't really jiving, isn't working out. Like, I have to pivot now. And so I was really thinking about it, and I was talking to some friends about it, and I was just like, I don't know what to do, you know, like I have this energy, I have something that needs to get out there. And I was like, and it dawned on me. I was like, okay, sea moss, like, I love sea moss, I take it all the time, I've been making it for the smoothies. Why don't I make medicinal infused sea moss gels and focus on that? And so I pivoted from Samadhi Smoothies to Samadhi Moss. And so I focused 100% on sea moss, and I was able to use the herbs and some of the ingredients I was using in the smoothies in the sea moss. And that just was, that's something original to me and to my brand. Samadhi Moss is just really making these infusions really medicinal with no added sugars or preservatives or any like fruity things. You know, it's just like really straight up for people who want just like the optimal health effects of the sea moss and then the herbs I put in it too. So that's kind of the long version of how Samadhi Moss began. And then from there, it just felt really right. The energy felt really right, and it just clicked. And so I guess that's an example of, like, you know, getting into a product and then having to pivot to fine tune it. You know, it's kind of like a trial and error thing. But I'm really glad. I'm super thankful that I arrived to this.
Can you shed a little light on the science behind it? And do you know how, like, if I was a 2-year-old, can you explain to someone who's never even heard of sea moss, like how it affects your body?
Absolutely.
And kind of how deep you want to go, the listeners want to hear it.
Yeah, this is actually my favorite part of it. Like, I'm naturally a pretty heady dude, so I love to like just get into the numbers and get into to like, what is this thing? Like, what? And I've done a lot of research on it. And what sea moss is in its raw and wild form, which is how I serve it. It's a red algae, and it's a seaweed, right? And there's a ton of seaweed in the ocean. But this is a specific kind of algae called Gracilaria, which is primarily found in the warm waters of the Caribbean. And this is part of the seaweed family that is responsible for oxygenating the ocean and also oxygenating the land. So the air we breathe, we think that we're breathing all trees, right? But we're actually breathing up to 70%. And this has been documented by like scientists, like up to 70% of algae, of seaweed. Like seaweed is responsible for oxygenating the ocean and helping us on land too.
So where did the passion for moss like originate? Parents, friends, did someone turn you on to it? Like, hey, Mike, you got to try this. This rocks your world. And where did it come from?
Yeah, so I originally learned about sea moss from a friend of mine in New York. He was, he also makes sea moss, and he was telling me all about sea moss, and he's the one who originally turned me on to it. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. So then I started making my own, right? And then from there, I just fell in love with it.
So what's the health advantages for the listeners? What value are you gonna bring through the moss? Like your buddy in New York was like, Mike, try this, and you're like, I love this because.
Yeah, I love this because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel healthy. It makes me feel clean. Gives me energy. Even though it's subtle, it's one of those things where you feel it most when you stop taking it. So if you take the stuff every day, it's going to work on the subtle body more than like a caffeine hit, or whatever. You're going to feel it when you stop taking it because it gives you the minerals that you can't necessarily find in food. So it helps your body replenish that energy that is lost from, just the lack of nutrients in our food today and lack of nutrients in our soil and, all the sprays and the processed iron fortified foods that are out there. And so this is like the cleanest form of nutrients that I've ever experienced in my life. But of course, with every product, with every industry, there's going to be, the brands who do it right and the brands who do it very cheaply and who cut corners and make it sort of not as good. And so one thing that I really take pride in with this business, with Samadhi Moss, is that I just go full bore. Like the best water, the best sea moss, the best herbs, like 0 corners cut. And it's sort of, it's more of like an integrity thing because I'm at a point now where it's like, this isn't just like a business for me. This is like a way of life. This is how I can express my passion for healing and wellness. I've been involved in the wellness world for the last decade. I worked for a numerous amount of brands in New York and a lot of different like high-end raw vegan restaurants. And I learned so much about just the wellness community and products and brands. And so with my brand, it's like, if I ever have to cut a corner, that's when I know it's time for me to move on. So that's what keeps me going is that passion about bringing people like really the best, not to say it from a place of hubris, but from a place of like, just that I truly want this to be the best that you can get.
I like that about you. You have an immense amount of pride for what you're creating, and you should. Not everyone does. Good on you.
Thank you.
And like, how often do people, or is it suggested to consume it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every day, a teaspoon, tablespoon.
Yeah. Like if you're brand new to it, and if you're like
if I'm taking it or you're taking it, I take it how often? Brand new.
Yeah, brand new. Like you're a pretty healthy and fit guy. I would say you can start with a tablespoon a day. For someone who's going through some health issues, or they're going through a major detox, or like they're just starting their wellness path, I would say start with like a teaspoon and a half, maybe like half of a tablespoon, because what this does, it'll naturally bind toxins, and it'll gently cleanse you in a way. And so if you're not already living like a at least a semi-healthy life or eating good, then if you take too much of this at first, you might have like that detox effect of whatever, like you may get like headache, fatigue, or whatever. But I would say for just the average person who is generally healthy and eats pretty good, I would say, yeah, start with a tablespoon and then work your way up from there. Like 1 to 3 tablespoons a day is the optimal serving suggestion, in my opinion. Like I go through 4 to 6 ounces of sea moss a day at this point, just because I've acclimated to it, and I've built up the quote unquote tolerance to it, but it's a very gentle supplement, and you can't overdose on it unless if you have a lot of, pre-existing like toxic buildup, or if you're on medications, iodine medications. That's the only medication, like with iodine, because this is high in iodine. So if you overdo an iodine, then you just don't want to do that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sea moss, all seaweed, is an important part of our ecosystem, right, of the sea, and we harvest ours sustainably. So, through my source where I get this, they sustainably harvest it. So what they do, sea moss is...
Can you grab some? Because I know you have some.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt,
absolutely.
but since we're recording, Mike is so kind here to bring like actual sea moss. And we're right by the Pacific Ocean. Like, where do you find sea moss? Like, can we find it here in the Pacific? Like, are you getting this in the West Coast?
No, so I'm getting this from the Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah, much cleaner waters.
Got it.
Warmer waters, cleaner waters.
Give that like a hold up too.
Yeah,
if you
can.
This
is the sea moss.
All right, so just your standard, almost sponge-looking stuff.
Yeah, so this is after it's been sun dried. So this is harvested from. This is wild harvested from ocean rock in Grenada.
Okay.
So South Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah. So not too far off the shore, but you do dive in to get it. So so yeah, I mean, I've heard like 20 meters, up to 20 meters, which is pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
But like, from 20 meters into the shore, that's kind of like where you can find this. And this is deeper water sea moss. So the shallower sea moss, it's going to look a little differently. And so the idea here is that deeper water sea moss contains more minerals than the shallow water sea moss. And sea moss in general is super high in chlorophyll, big chlorophyll content, and the oxygenating effect, like I said earlier. So imagine if this is helping to oxygenate the ocean. Imagine what it's doing when you put it in your body.
Sure.
Raw and wild and clean, just like the life that your cells are receiving, the fuel, the life, the energy. And then with that oxygen, it's going to naturally push out acidity and toxins, and that was Dr. Sebi's whole theory. He was sort of one of the, I would say, spokespersons for sea moss when he was practicing, and he was really big into fasting with sea moss as well, which I haven't tried. I'm not really big into fast, but I've heard people like celebrities like Left Eye, rest in peace, Left Eye, and like all these celebrities who were like apprenticing under him would like fast for like weeks on end on sea moss alone. And just the glow they had was unreal.
Like eating just that sea moss?
Yeah, in gel form.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you do, so this is...
that's just what I wanted to ask you. How is it made?
Yeah, sure. So it's a whole process. So when the divers, when they harvest the sea moss, they allow it to sun dry. Okay. And then when it's dried, it's going to shrivel up and dry out a bit. So this is what it looks like when it's sun dried. And so they then ship it to me in eco packaging. And then what I do is I take Carlsbad alkaline spring water. Spring water is the best water to use for this because it's really high in minerals, right? And so I go to the spring with glass jugs, and then I soak this in the alkaline water for up to 12 hours, sometimes more. And then you ultimately blend the wet and re-expanded sea moss with the water that it was soaked in, after you have rinsed and cleaned it out, of course. So it's a whole process of like rinsing, cleaning, soaking, blending, jarring. So it's a lot of labor, which is why, to do it correctly and to have it like with the consistency and just the potency, takes time and effort. So that's why it's easier for people to buy a jar of sea moss than get the blender and get the water and do the whole like soak, rinse, clean, blend. So
yeah, it's just like oat milk. You can make your own oat milk, but it's really easy to go to the store and buy your own oat milk.
Right.
Or my Simone Caesar, and anything that's good, it's a little more complex to make it. So you're like, I'll make it
for sure,
and then sell it to people.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win. Like you're creating a brand and also detoxifying people's bodies. And I'm curious about it. I know I tried a little bit of it one time, and it was very bland tasting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what you want, right? That's as natural as you're not trying to add extracts to it to sweeten it like a fountain drink. You're trying to keep it, as natural as possible, giving it a little bit of palatable taste so people aren't turned off by it. Kind of like, you ever have chlorophyll powder? Like like that's spirulina.
Yeah.
Spirulina, however you want to pronounce it. That stuff's really nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put, a little bit of spirulina into water, it tastes like nasty. Yeah. So, you don't want to. Yeah, that's like hardcore.
Yeah, my trick with it is lime.
Lime.
Yeah, so putting lime in the sea moss not only preserves it longer, it's like a natural preservative, but it also offsets that oceany taste. So many people who try the sea moss, they love the taste. They're like, this is refreshing. This is good. It's like a little limey, but it's also tastes like a clean ocean feel too. The people who aren't a fan of the taste, they usually have a texture issue because it's a bit gooey. So it's kind of like aloe vera or like kind of a chia seed pudding kind of. Yeah, jelly.
It's a gel.
And I didn't realize how many people have this issue, but I've done so many farmers markets already where it's like, I would say 4 out of 5 people love it. And then there's always that one person who's like, I just can't do the texture. So I'm like, well, you can put it in anything. You can put it in a smoothie. You can put it in anything. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I can put it in my orange juice or tea. Yeah, I can hide it. I can slip it in anything. So,
do you believe in changing your taste buds? Because I never really liked tomatoes. I liked ketchup. I never really liked mushrooms, and now I like tomatoes and mushrooms. And it's just kind of a mind over matter thing. And then over time, like I eat raw turmeric with a bite. Or I'll put it in oats and mix it in with fruit.
Yeah, I think taste buds can change over time. Like as a kid, I used to hate avocados.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I love avocados. I can eat it straight from the shell.
You just got to go for it a little bit.
Yeah. And
you got to try it.
Yeah. And
you got to enjoy the effect.
Totally. And it's the effect that you feel like, there's a number of like acupuncturists and naturopathic doctors who come by the booth and they try it for the first time, and they're, those people are usually really tapped into their sensitivity, to their intuition and their subtle bodies, and they're like, whoa, I feel this. I really, really feel this. I had an acupuncturist come and she tasted it and she was like, I feel it in my heart. Another person said, oh, I feel it in my crown. I feel it. So it's like it's one of those foods that, like, if you really allow it to come in, if you really allow yourself to really feel it, like, it's interesting to see what it can do to your body.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're not going to let you go too soon without trying the amazing Simone Caesar and Sky's Thai sauce on air. I'll let you try one first. I don't know what you prefer. Do you like Thai? That's a little spice. The Caesar, are you allergic to peanuts or cashews?
No.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Give one of those a try.
Sure. It's a spoon.
That's the spoon.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so what's this one? This one is...
So that's Sky's Thai, and the food line is Sky's the Limit. So a plant-based production is my podcast, me and John Swafford's cooking show. And then we have our food line called Sky's the Limit. And right now, the 2 sauces are the only products for Sky's the Limit. So these are both my mom's recipes, Simone Heyman. And we're looking forward to, getting these in the farmer's market here pretty soon. And hopefully in Costco nationwide in a year or 2.
That's good. That's spicy.
A little kick.
Yeah.
It's definitely
That's
not a
good,
hot
man.
sauce, and I don't know. It's people are like, well, what do you call it? And I came up with the line, it's a sauce spread, dressing, or dip, or whatever the F you want to call it.
Yeah. So
It's got a lot of different purposes. It could go on anything, kind of whatever
this would
you
go
imagine.
so well on spring rolls.
Yeah, I mean, noodles is what I had. Soba noodles, I think that's like priority number one.
Mm-hmm.
Spring rolls would be amazing, like a tofu summer roll, whatever. Either one. A roll is great. It's more of a sauce and a dip and a spread than a dressing.
So good.
Awesome. Glad you like it.
Yeah, no, that's I can definitely use that in something.
It could go on anything. Like, honestly, I love sauces, and that's kind of my whole thing with people who want to transition to a vegan plant-based diet. It's like you have a burger, and really what's the best part? The ketchup, lettuce, tomato, onion, or the sauce that's on the burger, or a chicken sandwich, or whatever it is. So people who are transitioning, if you have a really good sauce on a tofu patty or seitan or whatever it is, you don't really taste any of that tempeh, seitan, jackfruit. You taste the sauce.
Right.
So for guys who are like, I don't want to have tofu from like our era, it's like, well, just try this sauce and put it on the burger and you won't even taste it. So
yeah,
that's kind of my whole passion behind the sauce. It's, for people who are looking to transition to a plant-based lifestyle. The veggie burgers of old were pretty plain Jane, and now you throw like some of these Beyond Burgers, which, is a little bit of a cheat food. You make like a nice veggie burger and put some of the sauce on, or a nice wrap. And, I think the Caesar dressing on a wrap with lettuce and avocado and some olives is out of this world. So yeah. I'm gonna have you give that a try too.
That can be really good. This one too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Same spoon.
I mean, they're yours, so
okay.
You get in there.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah. So that's cashew based with tahini, lemons, white pepper, salt, garlic, some 50% less tamari, Bragg's aminos.
I can taste the aminos. That's what it is.
Some nutritional yeast.
Yeah, some nooch.
Some were like a little nooch. Some lemon, fresh lemon.
Okay.
So really high end products, just like your stuff, and again, very healing.
Yeah, I can taste
very
the love.
filling.
It's not watered down. It's really like you get a lot with each spoonful. Like that was.
What do people get that people need from Moss?
Yeah. So some of the main minerals in it is iodine. A ton of iodine in here that will help balance the thyroid and naturally boost your metabolism. Magnesium. We all need magnesium for our nervous systems, brain, calming. A lot of other functions too. Vitamin B6. There's traces of B12. It's traditionally known that sea moss is really high in silica and sulfur as well, so really good for the skin. Phosphorus, good for the bones. There's calcium, zinc. So just really good for the immunity. It's naturally antiviral. It's naturally antifungal, and naturally antimicrobial. So you can put on your skin as well. Vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D. So there is, it's traditionally been said, and Dr. Sebi was really like adamant about this, that sea moss has 92 minerals out of the 102 your body needs. But there is discourse in the community about exactly how many minerals are in sea moss, and I don't really like to how do I say this? I don't like to get too caught up on like exactly how many. All I know is that there's enough to make me feel really good and to make me feel really replenished, because I was on so many different supplements before I started taking sea moss, before I started making my own sea moss and taking this every day. I was on vitamin B's, I was on a C supplement, I was on D, I was on like magnesium, I was on man, I was just like, I had spent so much money on supplements daily, and honestly, like ever since I started taking this, my body has told me, no, this is enough. Like I'm good.
Cool.
I feel replenished.
You listed a lot of vitamins and minerals in it, so 92 out of the 102.
Copper is a big one too.
Copper, magnesium.
It's hard to find
iodine.
copper in food. Yeah, it's really hard to find like copper, zinc, magnesium. It's hard to find those in food, especially in food today. And copper, the biggest whole food sources of copper is you can get it from beef liver or shellfish, right? Oysters especially. But sea moss is often an overlooked food for it. Sea moss does contain copper, and it does help the body regulate itself, hormonally, it does bring that life force energy into the body that you can't necessarily find in any fortified or processed foods that are out there. So, yeah.
All amazing things. Good to hear, because I'm vegan, so I don't have oysters or beef liver. Yeah. So for the vegans that watch a plant-based production, sea moss is the thing to take. And it's amazing. I don't really take too many vitamins, and I'm not like anti-vitamins. I just try to live simply, especially with my nutrition and what goes in and what I digest. So the more foods that encompass these minerals and vitamins, the more I kind of perk up, and I'm like, ooh, like let's try that out. So,
and I'll tell you what too. Just because I like to treat myself as a science experiment often. And so when I stopped taking my supplements and all my other capsules and whatnot, and when I was doing this, after many months of being on this, I'm like, just for kicks, I'm going to go get mineral tested. I'm going to go get all my blood work done, all my mineral tested done, and everything came back super clean, really balanced and leveled. And I'm like, all right, like, okay, like I'm saving a lot of money right now.
Yeah,
eating my own product and just having that be like it, and I never I don't want to say this from a salesy point, from like in a salesy tone or anything, but I honestly I consume my product every day, and I'm just so thankful for it. Like I really am. And anyone who I can help as well on their path to wellness, it's just makes it all worth it even more. So
love it. And I'm a guy who totally gets what you're putting down, because I'm like, oh, well, I want to sell my Caesar, but if I have to eat some of it, like at least I'm not going out there buying a dressing or a sauce that isn't as good as and tasty as the stuff I have.
I know. And this
so
is probably
I'm like getting high off my own supply, and I'm like, it's all right, because it's really good for you and I really love it. So it's cool to have something that you make with your own hands that you want to get to other people that is legal, right? Some of that stuff's illegal. This is legal and it's good for you.
It's legal.
It's legal and it's good for you. And you're like, you don't feel bad about like, oh, well, I could make $5 more on that, but it's like, well, I rather just feel good, because at the end of the day, that's probably way more important. Health is wealth.
Health is wealth, 100%. I love your product because you go to the store, you can't find one salad dressing that doesn't have like canola oil or
no oil. Or this, that. What's the shelf life on this? Yeah,
so after it's made, it's about 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge from the day it's made. So that's the one challenge with this business, is that it's highly perishable. It's raw. You don't want to leave it out.
And that's why you eat it. You're like, shoot, this one's like going down. I'll take it down.
Yeah, you have to treat it like raw milk.
You're taking down the stuff that's about to go bad. Well, it's good. It's like good. It's just, it's perfect. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's still there, I'll eat it.
Yeah. And people are like, why don't you do something to extend the shelf life? I'm like, well, I don't want to put anything in there that's going to
gums.
I don't want to put any gums or stabilizers or whatever weird stuff in there. I'm not doing that.
Mike, thanks so much for coming on a plant-based production. It's been a pleasure learning about sea moss and having your energy in the studio or guest bedroom, whatever you want to call it.
Studio.
So really thank you for sharing your product and the health tips on taking sea moss. And if you're in North County, San Diego, I know you could find Samadhi Moss's product in Nectarine Grove and at the Leucadia Farmers Market every Sunday from 10 to 2. And Mike Ryan, awesome having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Skylar. Appreciate it. And I'm stoked to see what you end up doing with this. I'm excited to see you at the market and excited to support you in any way that I can, because you got a good thing going on. So
cool.
Thank you, brother.